my name is Harry, and today we're going to take a look at Toon Boom Harmony Premium. Toon Boom Harmony is the industry standard when it comes to animation software. It is used by all major studios around the world, with projects varying from animated series, mixture of live action and animation, mixture of 2D and 3D, feature films, gaming, and so on. Toon Boom Harmony is the standard because we are always ahead when it comes to the needs of the industry. For one, you can choose the resolution that you would like to work in. You can go anything from low resolution all the way to 8K. Within Harmony, you can also choose which color space you would like to use. If you go into the scene settings over here, you can go to the color space tab and choose which color space you would like to work for your project. This will ensure that you are in line with the rest of your pipeline. Let's start with the user interface. The user interface in Toon Boom Harmony is very intuitive. You have big windows for workspaces. You've got tabs that you can choose, close, and also open new ones, depending on what type of work you are busy doing at the moment. All of this can be customized, and of course you can manage your different workspaces so that you can save them, share them, and also take them with if you're changing your workspace. Let's start first by using the Library tab. The Library is arguably, for me, one of the most important tabs in Toon Boom Harmony. That's because anything that we create inside of Harmony or that we bring inside the software can be saved as a template and reused for later use. Toon Boom Harmony also has very powerful drawing tools. Within Harmony, you can work natively in bitmap. When you choose a bitmap layer or when you create a new bitmap layer, you can actually use a brush, which properties you can access from the tool property window over here. Inside the brush properties, you can change anything from the texture that you would like to use, to the maximum size, to the tilt and angle functions. All of this can be completely customized. You can even go further by accessing the size property window over here for pressure, tilt, speed, and inversion. All of this can be saved and can be used within presets. So all these presets are shareable. You can save them, give them to a team member so that everybody uses the same line, for example. Now let's move on to the vector tools. Toon Boom Harmony is very well known for its vector technology. You have two choices. You can work with a brush or you can work with a pencil. In the brush, such as the one used here for this drawing, you have access to the contour of the lines. So as you select the vector lines, you can manipulate the contour of that line very easily. But that doesn't mean that you can't change the direction of the line. You can do so with the center line editor. That gives you access to the center line, and you can change that using the Bezier handles over here. The center line editor also allows you to change how smooth this line is going to appear. You can do so from the centerline smoothness bar over there. So as you select your line and you change your settings, the software adds points for you automatically so that it gives you more control to change your lines. The brush tool doesn't stop here. You can use the brush with texture. As you can see here, this is a very nice textured line. At first it appears like it is a bitmap line, but in fact, it remains vector. In fact, if I select the lines over here, I can still change the envelope of my line, as well as the center line. When you select the brush tool, you can go into the brush properties, and you can choose between solid and textured vector. When you go to textured vector, you have access to a whole bunch of different textures. All of these textures can be imported. You can set presets once again. You can change the transparency. You can make it aliased if you want to. You can add two textures together. And you can go as far as adding a paper texture at the back of your line. So you have immense control as to how you would like your brushes to be like. Let's move on to the pencil line. The pencil line is probably the most widely used type of line. There's a very good reason for that, and that is because it is a very flexible line to use. It has access to the center line, so you can change the direction of the line, but it's very flexible in the sense that you can also change the size of the lines after they've been drawn. And I can do that for multiple lines at the same time. So I can select all of the pencil lines and I can change the thickness like so. I can also change the taper of the line. So for example, if I wanted my lines over here for the ear to be tapered differently, I can choose from a whole bunch of presets over here. But again, the pencil line doesn't stop there. We can also have textured pencil. And same as before, even though it looks textured and like a bitmap, it is actually still a vector line. So I can change the center line of that line over here, and I can add and remove points whenever I want to. Being a pencil line doesn't mean that I'm stuck here. If I wanted to convert this line to a brush, I can very easily do that by going to Drawing, Convert Pencil Lines to Brush. And in doing so, as you can see, my texture is conserved. Once again, with the pencil, I can change the size of the lines, the taper, but also the textures after the fact. So if I want to change it to a different texture, like dots, for example, or squiggly lines, I can do that after they've been drawn. So here are all the different types of lines that are available with Toon Boom Harmony. Now let's take a look at what we can do in terms of helping me to draw the lines. Here I have a rough drawing of my bat, and if I actually activate my light table over here, I have a lightened or washed drawing in the back that I can follow to draw my cleanup version. Another thing that I can use is the rotating table. That's very practical as well, just the same as you would if you were using an analog rotating table or a piece of paper. From here, I can choose the tool that I want to use. I'm going to use a pencil tool. I'm actually going to make this line slightly bigger like this. So right now, as I draw the line, you can see that my line is a bit squiggly because I'm not very, very smooth. So there are many ways that I can correct that. I can do that with the centerline smoothing tool right here. So if I increase that, let's say to halfway, you can see that it's not going to change it at first, but when I release, it's actually going to smooth it out afterwards. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, and I'm going to bring this back down to 0, is by using the stabilizer tool. There are two options. Average, I'm going to leave it on 50%. When that's used, you can see that it's actually smoothing the line for me as I'm drawing. So it's not going to do any corrections after I release the line. And so it could look something like this. Let's bring our drawing back straight. Then the other option I have is the pulled string option. The pulled string option is great because not only it will allow me to draw something really, really smooth, but I can also stop and change direction at any time. And so I can make sharp angles with my lines. All the tools that we've got here, from rectangle, ellipse, line, polyline, all of these actually use the pencil line. So if I choose the line tool over here, for example, you'll see that once I've finished drawing the line, such as a straight line like this, I can go and change that the same way as I was changing my pencil lines afterwards, including adding a texture to it if I need to. But while I'm on the line tool, I want to show you a few functions that the line tool has. The line tool has a straight function, like the one I've just used now, as well as a curve function, which allows me to drag the line, release, and then create a slight curve for my line before I confirm it. I can also do what is called an S-curve. So for example, I can draw a line, I can curve it one time, click and curve it a second time, and click again to confirm. I can also use what we call the line building mode. For example, if I'm using two lines, let me use another curved line over here, that building mode will allow me to actually connect these two lines together automatically. As you can see now, these two lines would be separate, but now because I've used the line building mode, it connected them into a single line, as well as changed the size or adapted the size of the line for me. So these are some of the tools that you can expect to help you out making the best of your creations in Toon Boom Harmony. Now let's move on to paperless animation. Generally, when you start an animation, you would probably have some kind of a rough animation behind that you can follow, or an animatic from the storyboarding stage. Toon Boom Harmony has a very tight integration with Toon Boom Storyboard Pro, our pre-production software. From Toon Boom Storyboard Pro, you can actually export your scenes directly into Toon Boom Harmony scenes. In this demonstration, instead, I'm going to use an animatic that was saved as a template from the library. So I can just drag and drop the template like this, and I can see the animatic directly on my timeline. I can press play, and you can see what the animation is supposed to be. From here, generally we would go ahead and create our rough animation. For the purpose of the demonstration, I'm going to use templates. So I'm going to bring in my rough animation directly from the library once again. If I drag and drop this in the camera view, I can see the animation directly. You can create your animation through various types of techniques and into various types of windows, such as, for example, the X-sheet window. Now, when you animate using traditional methods, you would most probably be learning to use the X-sheet, or you probably would have used the X-sheet. If you are used to that and that's a technique you're comfortable with, you can totally do the same in Toon Boom Harmony. The X-sheet will allow you to expose certain drawings. It will allow you to mark certain drawings, such as, for example, you can mark key drawings, and you can also mark your breakdown drawings like this directly into the X-sheet. But anything you can do in the X-sheet, you can do the same in the timeline as well. So if you're not comfortable with the X-sheet, or you've never used the X-sheet before, you can also use the timeline to do the same. In the timeline, you can bring up your thumbnails so you can see exactly what you are looking at for your animation. And in here, you can still move around your exposures. For example, if you want to expose a certain drawing for longer, you can drag directly into the timeline to make it expose for the duration that you want to. You can also take a drawing and move it around. You can move it to another place altogether, or you can, of course, delete or create a brand new drawing. So for instance, if you wanted to create a new drawing in between these two, you would just type here and it would create an empty new drawing for you. Now, when you animate frame by frame or any type of animation, it would be very useful for you to be able to see your previous and your next frames perhaps as well. And you can do so by activating the onion skin right here. Onion skin will allow you to see a certain number of drawings before the one you're on at the moment, and also after the one you're on at the moment. You can choose how many drawings you want to see by extending directly onto the timeline with these handles. That can also be sometimes a bit confusing, as you may have a whole lot of drawings available to you, right? So in this case, we also have what we call the Advanced Onion Skin tab. With the Advanced Onion Skin tab, you can actually choose whether you want to see frames or you want to see drawings. If you want to see drawings, you can actually choose which drawings you want to see. And you can choose the transparency of the onion skin. If you want to choose exactly which drawings you would like to see, not just 1, 2, 3, 4, but maybe 1, 5, 6, and 8, you can do so right here. And what's really cool is that you can actually choose, if you've marked your drawings, you can choose which ones that you want to see. So for example, let me go for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on either side here. And I want to see only the ones marked key. So I'm actually seeing the onion skin of only my key drawings. So this one and this one in this case. Then you also have a whole lot of tools available to you, such as the flip tool, for example, which allows you to, again, flip through the selected drawings, such as the key drawings, for example. And then all you need to do is also bring on the easy flipping tool right there. And so now it's only going to jump through the ones that you've selected. As you can see on the timeline, it's only jumping directly through the key drawings that I've marked as key drawings. And I'm going to move on now to the clean version of this animation. So I can take the rough, delete it off my timeline over here, and bring the clean version directly from the library once again. So this is what the clean version would look like once it's done. Now in Toon Boom Harmony, you have the ability to divide your drawings into various layers. We've got 4 layers available. We've got a line art layer, a color art layer, but we've also got an overlay layer and an underlay layer. All of these can be used separately and in conjunction with each other. If you want to also focus specifically on the drawing that you're busy with, you can go into the drawing tab, and then it will take you specifically to that drawing and not everything else in your scene. So in here, because I've got the line art selected, I can only see the lines. If I go into the color art, I can only see the transparent lines that are created automatically underneath my line layer. And this is very powerful because even if I've got textures, like I've got currently now for my lines, my color is actually going to automatically just slide under my line art instead of on the edge of the texture. This feature also allows me to do a lot of things in terms of compositing if I want to maybe affect only the lines or only the colors. Let's take a look at how we could now color in Toon Boom Harmony. We've got a color tab, and in the color tab, you have the ability to create as many palettes as you want to. And within any palette, you can have as many colors as you want to. These colors all have a specific ID. So over here, as you can see, I've got a whole bunch of colors for the wizard. And for me to start coloring, I would need to choose a certain color tool. We've got many, we've got paint, you can ink your lines, you can use paint unpainted, repaint unpaint. Let's go into the paint unpainted tool. I then need to choose the color that I want to use and start filling. Problem is, there are so many colors that I don't know which one to use. So this is the perfect time for me to use the model view over here. Thankfully, someone else has saved a color model for me, so I can just drag and drop the template into my color view. And so I can navigate through the different colors at ease and select the color that I want to fill in with, such as his skin. And then I can start filling in the color like this. As you can see, it's very quick for me to use the tool there. By using the Paint Unpainted tool, I can go very quickly across these lines because it will only fill where it hasn't been filled before. So that allows me to not be too careful as to where I actually paint. I can look at the inside and do like that. And as you can see, it's very quick for me to start filling in my paint like this. Now, of course, this is only one frame, and I need to be painting a whole bunch of different frames as this is frame by frame animation, right? So wouldn't it be great if I could actually paint several frames at the same time? Well, we can. Let's put on our onion skin once again so that I can see where my previous and my next drawings are. To do that, I might actually go into here and change this to frames. That's it. And I might also just take away the keyframe drawing over there. So now I can see a whole bunch of drawings before and after. Let's go a little bit further in time like this. So I'm going to choose the model view right there. I'm going to choose the color I would like to use is the inside of my shirt. And I'm going to start the tool property window over there. Choose this option, apply to all frames. And then all I need to do is to draw a line through where I'm going to apply my color. So I just do that, and you'll see now that it has painted on multiple frames where I actually need it to be painted. And I can do the same, for example, for the arm, like this. And once again, I could come here and I could draw a line right through like this. And that will also fill multiple drawings at the same time. So that's super easy and super quick for me to draw and to paint with Toon Boom Harmony. Let me now bring in the painted version of our animation so that you can see what it looks like. There we go. So you can see all the frames are painted and looking really, really cool. Sometimes it happens in the animation process that the colors are not quite right, or that maybe the art director needs to take a look at what other colors would be like on a character. Nothing could be easier in Toon Boom Harmony because you can actually change the colors on the fly. So while this animation is playing over here, I'm going to actually go and choose a specific color, right? So I'm going to choose maybe the blue of his cape, and I'm going to let it play. And while it's playing, I'm actually going to look at a different color altogether. And as you can see, on the fly, instantly, it is changing the color on every single frame that I have applied that color. That is because each color in Toon Boom Harmony is marked by an ID, and that Harmony will recognize that ID anywhere it's been used. And this can be across scenes, across an entire project, or across multiple frames, of course. It doesn't stop there. I can go into gradients and add a gradient to that color. And again, it will apply that wherever I've applied that specific color. We can also change the entire palette at once. So for example, if your character walked into a dark tavern, then its colors would be different. Instead of unpainting and repainting everything, you could just simply clone his entire palette. So by cloning this palette, we still remember which color ID are we using. So for example, here, I'm going to call this one Night. I'm going to now tint that palette. In here, I can choose which color I would like to tint. For now, I would like to use everything from there to there. So all of these colors at once will be changed. I'm also going to show a preview so we can see it. I'm going to blend and add a little bit of blue, maybe a bit of green, and bring the amount up so that we can see this could be a nice, maybe nice dark night color for my character, something like this. And when I'm done and satisfied, I can say apply. Every time the character is out at night, I can use this palette. Every time is in the middle of the day, I can use this palette. And I can switch between the two at any time without the need for unpainting and repainting anything. This also stops me from having to do some heavy compositing on a specific character afterwards. Instead, I can just change the palette and switch between the one palette or the other. Generally, at this point, we may want to add a background to our scene. While we can import backgrounds from outside of Harmony, you can also create your backgrounds directly inside the software. And to do so, we've got some nice guides for you to use. Let me just hide this for the moment and bring back my animatic. In my animatic, I can see the rough background, and I would like to use that as a guide to draw the background as well. You can do this freestyle, of course, or you can also use our perspective guides. For the perspective guides, you've got a guide tab over here. And in here, you have access to a whole range of different guides, from rulers to 1-point perspective, all the way to 5-point perspective fisheye or isometric perspective. You have the ability to choose whichever guide you want as a template, and then you can create your own guides by placing your horizon, your vanishing points, and then save that so that you can reuse it later. For now, I would like to use this opportunity here to maybe draw the perspective of my table. The cool thing about the guides is that you can use any tool that you have at your disposal, such as, for example, the pencil line. So if I choose now my pencil line, as you can see, I can just draw the perspective of my table, my lines, and it will follow exactly what I have set up with the vanishing points and rising line. Same for the window. This time it's a 3-point perspective for the window here. So I can go over there and start drawing my lines like this. And as you can see, it follows my perspective perfectly. And if I want to, at any time, I can always deselect it and do something else and draw, another part of my drawing. But I can then reactivate it and carry on with my perspective. Now let's take a look at how you could import your backgrounds inside of Toon Boom Harmony. Most of the time, if you don't create your backgrounds within Harmony, you would be bringing them from outside. In here, you can go straight to the import menu, and from there you can have a whole bunch of different options to import images. If Toon Boom Harmony is connected to a local or network scanner, you can actually scan all your images at once and create a preference for all of the images that you scan at once. You can also import images of various formats, 3D models, you can import movies, sounds, color models as we saw, as well as SWF or Illustrator files directly to your library. In terms of images, you've got the ability to import multiple types, such as flat images, JPEGs, PNGs, and so on, or also multi-layered images. In this option, you can have the ability to import them as a bitmap, or a Toon Boom bitmap drawing, or convert everything to vector. You can also set the color space for the imported image. Now I'm just going to click OK over here, and it warns me that I've got individual layers. Do I want them separate or grouped or as a flattened layer? I'm just going to click OK, and you will see that I've got all the layers that were created within Adobe Photoshop, all separated. For now, I'm going to undo this, and I'm going to bring a background that I've already pre-prepared, which was saved as a template. So I'm just going to drag and drop it directly into the scene. At first, it looks exactly the same, right? Right now, I've got all my different layers separated. As you can see, I can select them individually like this. This is a good opportunity for me to introduce the camera. In Toon Boom Harmony, you can create a real camera and animate the camera separate from everything else in your scene. To do that is very simple. I'm just going to click here, add a camera, and then attach a peg to that camera so that I can animate the peg. For now, I'm going to place my camera a little bit wider, right? So I'm just going to move this like this, and make sure that I can see pretty much everything within my scene. If you want to hide the camera selection like this, or at least what's around the camera, you can also do that by pressing this button right there. And then maybe at frame 40, I'm going to move again the camera to where I want it to be. So I'm going to zoom in, and you're probably noticing something here, that all of the objects are moving very, very nicely. And they're all moving at different paces. And that's because the camera, or rather the multiplane, has created a parallax effect. Let's have a look at the movement first before we go on. There you go. And as you can see, the front objects move much faster and grow much bigger than the objects at the back, and the hills seem to be rolling as we're moving closer to them. That's because you have the ability to move your objects in depth. We have a full 3D environment in which you can place your entire project. So as you can see here, I've previously moved all of the objects on separate planes. They're all flat, but they've all been moved at separate Z depth. If I want to, I can also show you the camera. And I can select the camera like this and see that it is the camera that is moving, not the objects around it. Now from here, we're going to move on to another style of animation called cutout animation. And we're going to start with rigging. As we saw earlier, Toon Boom Harmony is very well suited to frame-by-frame paperless animation. But when it comes to cutout animation, Harmony takes it to another level. Now, before we go into the animation process itself, a very important pre-production phase called rigging is necessary. Now, to do this, let's go back to our scene over here. I'm going to import a rigged character from the template. This again highlights the fact that in the library, you can save any kinds of files. So let me go and grab the character right now and just drag and drop it into my scene. If I go back to the beginning, we can see our character standing right there. For now, we're going to also hide the camera movement, at least, so that we can have a static position. So let's take a look at the rig itself. In Toon Boom Harmony, one of the most powerful features that we've got is the node view. The node view is a nonlinear nodal system that allows you to have every single object existing in your scene as a node. This is the perfect place for you to do some rigging, to create your hierarchy for your characters, as well as to do some complex or not so complex compositing for your scene. Let's take a look at this character right now. This character is composed of different parts. As a cutout character should be, it is rigged with a hierarchy. For example, when I select the hand, I can move the hand independently from the rest of its body. I can even separate the hand from the rest of its body. But I can also go up the hierarchy and access, for example, the lower arm. And when I move the lower arm, it also moves the hand with it because the hand is the child of the lower arm. And when I go up that hierarchy, it also moves everything below the parent, which is at this point the shoulder. This is the basis of a hierarchy. If I look at that inside of my node view, I can press on the O button to access directly what I have selected in my camera. So at the moment, I can look at the arm master, which is the upper arm there. And as you can see, it's simply a cable that goes down to my sleeve, which then goes down all the way to my lower arm and my hand. So it's really simple to create hierarchies using the node view. If you so choose, you can also do your rigging directly from the timeline. And while the node view may appear quite challenging to some, I can guarantee you that once you've used it, you will never want to go back. So in terms of creating animation from a cutout, you have the ability to set keyframes at different parts of your animation, but you can also expose different drawings at a specific time. So for example, if you wanted to move the hand, you'll seldomly rig the entire hand. Instead, you will probably draw different hand positions. But what if you now move the arm? Will the hand follow? Well, let's do that. Let's move the arm over here and see if this hand will be able to be updated to a different drawing. So if I select the hand again, I would like to now access all the different drawings or draw a new one for my hand. To do that, I can go to the drawing substitution window. This gives me a list of all the different drawings that I have for my hand. And when I want to, I can just select the right one that I would like to use. And as you can see, it doesn't matter where my arm is, the hand will always follow and will always be attached to its parent. This window also allows you to organize your drawings, such as delete unwanted drawings, rename drawings, and reposition them. In terms of cutouts, we also have different methods for you to animate. To make things easier, we can use a process called deformation. In Toon Boom Harmony, you have the ability to deform a drawing or a series of drawing. In this arm over here, we've got what we call a curve deformer. The curve deformer allows you to move certain drawings along a curve. So for example, here, as you can see, the curve is along the arm. And even though the arm is composed of 3 different parts, it actually is allowing you to move all these 3 different parts along that curve. That doesn't take away from the fact that you can also still select the hierarchy and access that hierarchy to move it independently from the deformation. On the other arm, we also have another kind of deformation. We have what we call a bone deform. The bone deform allows you to have, as the name indicates, 2 bones and a joint in the middle. When I say 2, you can obviously add more bones than that and more joints. But the point is that you can select the joints, change the direction or the size of it. You can move your bones along those joints. And what's amazing about the deformation is that you can stretch or squash your drawings however and whenever you want. You don't need to go in the drawings itself, pull the lines, or fill the colors. You can just simply, once you've added a deformation, move the deform points and it will stretch or squash your drawings for you. What if we have gradients or textures in our drawings, will you ask? Well, that's fairly easy. With deformations, you can actually deform all kinds of different objects, including objects with gradients or with textures. For example, here in the jaw, we've got a gradient. So we've used a different type of deformation for this. We've used what we call a free-form deformer. It is exactly the same as an envelope deformer, except it is used mainly when you have textures or gradients. For instance, here, as you can see, it has points around the object, so I can actually move the whole object like this along these points and these Bezier handles, and it handles the gradient beautifully. Same up here for the hair. As you can see, the hair has got a texture inside, and when I select that, I can also move along the outside of the object, and my texture is moving perfectly, not crystallizing, deforming absolutely perfectly. In Toon Boom Harmony, you can actually add a deformer on top of a deformer. So I'm going to select our character, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to select the deformation on there, and here it is. Here's a curved deformer on top of my freeform deformer for the hair. I can move this along the curve, bend it however I want it to be, move it to any place I want, but still have access to my freeform deformer and deform the entire object like this. And as a bonus, it works perfectly well with my texture as well. Thanks to deformation, we can do a whole bunch of different things, starting with an amazing tool called constraints. Now, the constraints are tools that will allow you to constrain certain parts of your animated character or your rigged character. For example, here, if I wanted to move the leg to the side and bend his knee, generally with a cutout character, I would have to do so in different parts. I would have to move the foot first, then the lower leg, then the upper leg, and try maybe to match. I would like to probably go into the drawing and extend the drawing, add more color to it, and make sure it all fits together. Instead, thanks to Toon Boom Harmony, you can put constraints, for example, here on the hip and on the foot, so that when I move a certain part of my rig, it moves according to how I want it to be, and make life a lot easier for the animators. I've selected the foot, and when I move the foot, it extends, thanks to deformation, extends my upper leg like this. And it also makes sure that my foot is always parallel to the ground. Those are constraints. Then I can select another part of my body, go up to the constraint that I need, and then I can bend the knee like this. And guys, it only took me 2 clicks to make this movement. Such tools allow me to very quickly create animations such as this. So if I zoom out a little bit to see a bit better, I can play the animation and you can see what it looks like. The other thing that you can probably see is the bounce effect here on the hair and the t-shirt. Those were not animated frame by frame. Those were animated using a system called dynamic spring. Dynamic spring is something that the rigger can add to the rig, and the animator then can have access to the controller and activate or deactivate the dynamic spring at their leisure. So for example here, if I want it on, it will show like this, and I can deselect it, and it will simply not affect the hair. When it comes to lip syncing, Toon Boom Harmony also has tools to help you with that. So let's take a look at our punk once again. This time I'm bringing in a template that only has the top half of the character, because all we really want to see is his head and his mouth. When it comes to lip syncing, it is the same process as to expose different drawings to represent the mouth moving. You can import all kinds of sounds, MP3s, waves. You can go to import sound, or you can also bring in sounds directly from the library if it's been saved as a template, which is what I'm going to do right now. I just drag and drop into the scene, and you can see the sound layer directly into my timeline over here with the sound waves. So let's listen to what this sounds like at the moment.
Wow, this is amazing. Wow, this is totally rad.
So as you can see, my character is not lip synced at the moment. It is simply animated a little bit so that you can see that as well, that the mouth will follow the animation if it was done previously or by someone else even. Now all I need to do is analyze the sound so that the software can analyze the phonemes. To do that, I select the layer, go to layer properties over here, and I can see the properties of my sound. If I want to, I can go into the sound editor and play and edit my sound directly from Toon Boom Harmony. But I don't need to do that right now. All I need to do is to detect the phonemes. So a click of a button, it takes a split of a second, so I don't even see that. And what the software does is it looks at the phonemes, so it's completely language independent. Of course, it needs to associate it with my drawings. So I need to map it right now. I need to go and choose the actual mouth that I want to use. And then I need to indicate which drawings to use. In my case, they are all named exactly the same as what the software is expecting. And that's it. Let's take a look.
Wow, this is amazing. Wow, this is totally rad.
So as you can see, the rigging process, as well as the lip syncing process, can be very intuitive and very powerful in Toon Boom Harmony. Now that we've seen how we can rig a character, let's see how we can move and animate that character. In Toon Boom Harmony, you have the ability to not only save a complete rig, but you can also save what we call action templates with animation already in it. So for example here, I'm going to bring my punk master. At this point, my punk is not moving at all. Then from here, what you can do is start animating this character. But also, someone else may have had the pleasure to animate this character. Maybe do a walk cycle, or a run cycle, or a jump cycle, or anything at all, and then saved it into the library. And then whenever you want to, or whenever you need to, you can have access to that specific template. So you can very easily just bring the action template and position it wherever you want to on the timeline. Maybe let's place it from frame 10. And as you can see right now, our character is moved into position and is animated with a walk cycle on the spot at the moment. From here then, I'm going to actually minimize that. I'm going to create a cycle. I'm going to copy these keyframes. I'm going to paste them once. I'm going to paste them twice. I'm going to stop the playhead over here. And so right now we've got our walk cycle on the spot for our character, and it's working perfectly. So as you can see, he's starting straight ahead looking at us. And from here, he does a quick turn for the walk cycle. That's how easy it is for you to integrate an action template directly inside of your scene. But now we need to make him move. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually use a separate peg, which is connected to the entire character. From here, we're going to put a keyframe, and we're also going to then place another keyframe at the end, right there, and zoom out a little bit, and move our character all the way to the outside of the screen. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to show you the path itself. So I can move it like this, and as you can see, it's showing me where my character needs to go. And that is how easy it is for you to create a path. It looks like also it's already interpolated between keyframe 1 and keyframe 2. So let's take a look at that. Right now, our character is moving from there to there. And it's that easy. Sometimes you may need to add a little bit more complexity to your animation. In this particular example, you can see that the shark has several positions and poses to represent a turnaround. In 2D animation, this is fairly standard. When you want to move a character, you can't just rotate the character itself. You have to create your own poses, such as a 3/4, a side view, a 3/4 back, or a back view. And if the character is symmetrical, you may be able to just flip this on the other side and have a complete turnaround. Now, the master controller allows you to associate different poses at different times, and you have access to those poses via controllers. You also have access to reference pages. such as this one, to show the animators what those controllers are actually doing. So let's take a look here at what we've got. Over here, we've got a turnaround control. Over here, we've got control for the mouth. So instead of the animators having to move independent elements to make a character move a certain way, for example, doing a tilt, what we've done is we've associated all of those positions, only those parts, to what we call a grid. Now, wherever you move this point here, it's actually going to move and position your character according to the poses that we have associated. And it's also going to create the interpolation between key 1 and key 2. If you want the character to turn around, you can do that from the slider over here. He's still tilted, but you can turn him around like this and tilt him a bit more. Here we've got a controller for the eyes, so we can also move the eyes. And wherever the point moves on the grid, it also moves the eyes. Same for the mouth. So I can access the mouth over here and change the mouth position. And as you can see, it makes for a very, very smooth movement and very easy for the animators to access those different drawings. Now let's take a look at how we could animate. So I'm going to select this again, delete it, and bring a new template inside of our scene. This one has only one frame for our character. So when we go to frame 20, the first thing that we're going to do is first expose the character for up to 20 frames. Nothing easier to do. It's just a shortcut, extend exposure, and it is now exposed from 0 to 20. Let's set our first pose. First of all, we're going to show all our controllers. So we're going to select them all, make them all visible, including the reference drawings as well, so that we can see what they are doing, right? So I can select that and make those visible as well. Don't worry, those will not be linked to your right modules, so they will never be rendered when you press the final render button. So now we would like to position our character maybe to tilt backwards at first. We don't need to select anyone in particular. We can just simply position our character from the master controller, and that's it. And now we can just place it. It would have created a keyframe for us automatically on the timeline. And then on frame 20, we're going to do another keyframe. So we place it right there and we move him maybe to look on the side like that. And maybe he's now a lot more interested in what's going on. And because motion keyframing is already set automatically for me, you'll see that it's created the motion automatically. And it's that easy, folks. Again, if you want to change something, obviously in between, you're more than welcome to. Maybe you want to add a different position where it's slightly higher. And this way is actually going through an in-between position right there before he hunches down. And of course, if you want to select individual drawings and elements, you can also do that. You're not stuck to use only the master controllers. With Toon Boom Harmony Premium, you can do some very powerful compositing. And nothing is more efficient than to use the same software that you use for animation to do your compositing. Now, that's not to say that you can't export or render different parts of your animation to use with different softwares in your pipeline. Thanks to the node view and the non-linear, non-destructive aspect of the node view, you can render any part of your animation at any time. Let's take a look at some of the tools that we have at our disposal to do compositing. The first thing to take a look at is our node library. In the node library, you have access to all the nodes that are currently available for Toon Boom Harmony Premium. In here, you can see some of our favorites. You can see the filters, such as bloom, blurs. You can see shadows, all kinds of different things that you would like to use. You can even go down over here and look at some particle systems. Anything from systems that are already set for you, such as leaves such as rain or confetti, or all the different parts that are used to create such particles. Let's take a look at what the scene is about. So for now we are in OpenGL view, so no effect is shown. To see any effect, you would have to render this right now. So we click on the little flower over here, and that will activate the render view. As you can see, nothing much is happening because I deactivated a whole bunch of different effects. Let's go into the background and look at some of the most popular effects that we may have at our disposal. One of the first one is a glow, for example, which we activated separately, as you can see, only on the bulb right here. And when I activate this, it will show the glow on that. I can also add a transparency on that so that it's not as strong as before. The bubbles over here are supposed to be, this is a lab, right? So they're supposed to be moving and maybe changing color a little bit along the way. So once I activate it, I have put a color curve onto the bubbles. The color curve goes like this. You can go and change the colors on an RGB level, on a red level, green, blue, or alpha if I wanted to. In this case, when I move the playhead, you can see that the colors are changing randomly. I've animated them so that they can all change at random times. So any settings can be animated within the compositing node. Over here, we also have a room shadow, which allows me to have a little bit more darker effect on my entire scene. So if I activate that now, you can see a nice dark atmosphere in here. One of the most popular effects is the shadow itself. Over here we have a shadow group, which we can activate as well. And you can see that right here, we've got a shadow that is projected to the ground. That is so because we are using a quad map, which you can also activate its controls if you click on the view control button over here, and you can choose how you want it to be projected on the ground. And once again, this is an instance of the characters. Wherever the character moves, this shadow will also be moving with it. Let's hide these controls for now, and let's go into the shadow element itself and change it so that we can affect how the shadow appears on the ground. Right now, I may want to add a little bit more radius to it. So maybe I'm going to add it maybe 10, and that makes it quite blurry, but maybe we can't see the difference very well. And instead of doing undo, for example, and see what it looked like before, maybe we want to use what we call a snapshot. In Toon Boom Harmony, you can use up to 5 different snapshots so that you can see the difference between an effect or no effect, for example. So I'm going to take a snapshot with this scene right now. And right there, I'm going to now change the shadow. Let's go crazy. Let's go 20. Maybe I want to add the intensity as well. Maybe add the intensity to 3. Now it's very, very dark. But the point is, I can look at my snapshot and the difference between previously and now. Another great effect is the light shading effect. Now, with the light shading effect, you have the ability to add not only tone and highlight within your character, but you can also change the aspect of those in such a way that you can make your characters pop out of their environment. Let's take a look at that right now. As you can see, it's rendered it very quickly, and you can see the tone and the highlights on this character. Wherever the character is moving, by the way, those will also follow, because once again, it's an instance of the character. And so right here, if you go inside of this, you can see the tone shader, the multiply effect, all kinds of different things, the normal mapping that allows you to make this pop out. You can also set light positions, and those light positions can be moved or animated at any stage. So if I select the transform tool here, I can move this one, which happens to be the light shader. So it moves the highlight effect around. I can also access the second light position and move the tone. And so if your light sources move around in your scene, you will be able to move your light shading as well. As you can see, There's a lot that you can do in terms of compositing inside of Toon Boom Harmony. Let's now move on to our next session, and I would like to show you how you can import and work with 3D inside of Toon Boom Harmony. In this scene, which looks exactly like the previous scene, but is it exactly the same? In this case, what's happening is that our camera is actually going through the maze and going into a different section of the back of the laboratory. All of these other objects here are 3D, and this camera move was animated directly inside of Harmony. That is because, as I mentioned previously, we have a full 3D environment within Toon Boom Harmony Premium. And you have access to all of this through the perspective view, and you can look around the room, move objects, and select objects as you see fit. So from the camera, you can have not only access to the 2D elements, but also the 3D elements. So for example, if you bring in objects that are separated, such as these parts of the robot arm right there, you can actually move them in all 3D axes at the same time and animate them in all 3 axes at the same time. And so you have full integration between 2D and 3D and animate both in the same environment if you wanted them to interact with each other. In terms of 3D files, you can import FBX, OBJ, or Alembic files into Toon Boom Harmony. And when it comes to rendering, if you've used Autodesk Maya, you can render the scenes in 2D and in 3D in the same camera view inside of Toon Boom Harmony. To do that, you would simply have to add the Maya batch render node to your FBX and then set it so that Maya renders the 3D while Toon Boom Harmony renders the 2D. And when you click on the flower render button over here, you can see right there that Maya has rendered the 3D and Harmony has also rendered the 2D aspect of it. So you have a full appreciation of what the 2D, 3D scene looks directly inside of Toon Boom Harmony. Once it's done, there's also a lot of options in terms of export and saving. So for example, if you wanted to export your movie, you could obviously render the right nodes. Right nodes are nodes that you can set onto your scene at different parts. So you can render different parts of your scene without affecting other parts, for example. This would be perfect for pipeline integration with other softwares, especially when it comes to compositing. You can also export your entire movie. You can export to GIF. You can export to SWF and the OpenGL files and frames as well. You can also export your audio. Just a side note, when you do export your movie as a final render, it is totally possible for you to also set your color space. Either you can use the color space of your current scene, or you can specify which color space you need to use for that specific export. For more information and exciting news about our products, I invite you to go to our website, www.toonboom.com, and you can also try Harmony Premium for free for 21 days. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.